Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching today's Ag Forecast, brought to you by Nutrien Ag Solutions, your premier platform for real-time global insights. Let's just take us back over the weekend briefly to start this video. We're looking at storm reports here on Friday the 19th and then Saturday the 20th. Combined, those 2 days produced over 620 separate reports of severe weather, and you see a lot of blue dots on this map indicating severe winds. Those are winds over 58 miles an hour generated by the thunderstorm. Even on Sunday, which I don't have shown here, we had severe weather that was along parts of the East Coast and stretching back into the middle part of the United States. It was a very stormy weekend as storms were riding around a large ridge that was pumping a lot of moisture and instability deep into U.S. territory here, getting toward the northern border. And as these storms went through, we got a pretty amazing glimpse of them from our GOES 16 infrared satellite imagery here. Storms were born in the Dakotas, moved across Minnesota where they reinvigorated on the heat of the day, and as they passed into Wisconsin on Friday night, the anvil, that's the top of the storm, actually spread to cover not only state of the Wisconsin, but most of Michigan and even most of Lake Superior. This was a massive complex of thunderstorms, as you see kind of again here in this animation, blowing up right there in Minnesota and then spreading across the state of Wisconsin. I'm showing you this because this is one of the more severe setups that I've seen in a long time. Cloud top temperatures here surpassing minus 80 degrees Celsius, which means we know when we stare at the anvil here, this is the exhaust, the top of the thunderstorm, that these storms underneath it were incredibly powerful, producing not only damaging winds, but hail and an enormous amount of lightning. From visible satellite imagery, check this out. Look at them bubble. This is 1 minute GOES 16 satellite imagery. You're looking here at the overshooting tops that are breaking through the anvil, sending out gravity waves, telling me that, again, these storms formed in an environment that had destabilized and was just loaded with moisture. And that was all riding around the periphery of that ridge. Well, as they came through on radar, check out this very interesting radar signature. We actually had two Boeing segments. There's one here and there's a second here, with this one actually producing a very nice bookend vortex. That's what we call that, a bookend vortex. Whenever we see this Boeing structure on radar, and I've got you here in northern Wisconsin on the Green Bay radar, we know that very strong back to front flow, we call this the rear inflow jet, has dominated the flow of these storms. And I want to show you now, going from the radar reflectivity imagery here over to the Doppler velocity imagery. And what was amazing about this is when you see these colors right in through here, these green and blue colors indicate winds being blown toward the radar, and some of the speeds in here, especially right in through this pocket. Now, this was well above the surface, but still, right in this pocket were in excess of 120 miles an hour. Occasionally, we saw on radar wind speeds over 140 miles an hour. Now, on the ground, they weren't quite that fast, but still an enormous amount of damage. And you've probably seen a lot over the weekend on the news. I just want to show you this. This, I think, tells us exactly what was going on. These were strong, mature trees. This picture was given to me by Ken Dahlmeyer, a good friend of mine here in Mahomet, Illinois, to show me some pictures from his family's property in Wisconsin. And you know that if we were able to knock trees down like this, uprooting them, we know what our corn and soybeans in this area must be looking like. And I've seen a lot of pictures and videos of corn that have gone through green snap. And this was a horrific event, a nasty, nasty round of thunderstorms. And we have to answer the question, is stuff like this coming back, and how soon? Now, I want to look at this on a bigger scale here, first of all, because when you look at the last 72 hours of precipitation, we can see those corridors in which we had a lot of thunderstorms, okay? We're building here in the Four Corner States around a high there. We had a lot of shower and thunderstorm activity down here along the Gulf Coast. Again, this being fueled by air that's running around a big high that's sitting out in the open Atlantic. But outside of that, a lot of hit or miss showers and storms, especially in the eastern Cornbelt. Now, what's going to be interesting about the analysis of this most recent heat wave is people are going to look at this, and farmers are going to be talking, going like, oh, you got 1.5 inches, 3 inches of rain. I wish I would have gotten some of that. Look at all the white that you still see in some prime corn and soybean and cotton country here in the middle and the southern part of the United States. In fact, just looking back over the last 7 days in terms of percent of normal, we kind of have two regions that really got hammered. This was Barry, yes, remember that? And this was the ridge riding event that went over the top of that huge ridge that sat in the middle part of the country. When you look at it, I want you to focus in on some of those reds you see across the whole of the United States. There are some people that endured the heat we had over the last several days with no precipitation at all. And as we talked about, this is a prime situation for flash drought, rapid evapotranspiration out of the plant, out of the soil. And with the heat like this is just looking at the last 5 days in terms of temperature anomalies. We can see where that dome of heat sat right in through here, and it scorched many of us with triple-digit heat and at times some extremely high humidity values. And this was very, very poorly timed. Now, it did this, though. Okay, you're looking here at the latest map showing you growing degree day anomalies. That heat did help recover a large section of the country, getting us back above average on the accumulation of heat since June 1st. So several people are going to see that if you did get a drink of water from these storms, although some of them, again, were nasty, we have made some progress, and the crop is trying to catch up on this recent heat. But it's about the timing of this heat that is bad. Now let me show what I mean. I'm just going to do this analysis for Champaign, but this is everywhere across the corn and soybean belt of the United States. You're looking at the graph over there on the left. These are temperatures every day expressed in a blue bar, goes up and down there for Champaign, Illinois. So high is at the top of the blue bar, low is at the bottom of the blue bar. And when you look at this, I just want to start from our growing season, which is here, and I want to draw a simple shape for 2012. That's what's over on the left. It does something like that, okay? You can see the peak in high temperature right here during pollination. This is what destroyed that crop, that and drought. But look over here in 2014, that's what's on the right. We kind of call this the M pattern. See, it kind of goes up, comes down, comes back up, and goes down. This particular pattern right here is crucial if you plant your crop at the right time, end of April, beginning of May, to have that temperature dip there in the middle of the summer is what can make phenomenal yields. And we saw that many times over the last 6 years. We fear this particular pattern, especially if there is drought accompanying it as well. And that place I circled right there, that is the result of ridging in the mid part of the country during this time of year. So we saw that now, but the question is how much of the crop was pollinating. We could make an argument that at least 30 to 40% of it was tassel and pollinating at this particular time, which means we could have a pretty negative effect on yields because of that. So I just want to show you that analysis here. As we move forward, things are certainly changing. Our ridge is now slid back. Our upper level ridge has slid back to the west a bit. You can see the highly amplified flow just temporarily, and the deeper trough that is now sitting over the Great Lakes. That's what's introduced some cooler and drier air. At the surface, take a look at what the flow looks like here. We can see, in general, the boundary is sitting right in through there. There's a surface-based high-pressure system here, and it is letting cooler, drier air moving in to move into a big section of the midsection of the country. But it'll be along this boundary today that we're going to be watching for strong to severe thunderstorms, and also we're going to be watching for decent flow in the southeast to be producing quite a bit of thunderstorm activity. Meanwhile, the Midwest, the Great Plains, and the Great Lakes states are going to get a break from all of the chaos they've had over the last few days. So let's get right into this. Over the next 5 days, what are we looking at in terms of temperature anomalies here? Well, heat builds back into the Canadian prairies as the ridge shifts west with time. We get the much cooler than average weather in through here. So what do I mean by much cooler than average? 2, 3, 4 degrees cooler than average. That's going to feel fantastic compared to what we had been seeing. Over here on the right, we're looking at what happens though days 5 through 10. And as we've been talking about, and you'll see this in a few minutes, we know that this particular pattern is flatter. This particular pattern has broader troughs and ridges, and they tend to be more stagnant. So we start to see the return of heat getting back into the midsection of the country toward the Great Lakes states here by day 5 through 10. And what's going on in Alaska and western parts of Canada will be crucial to understanding that. I'll show it to you in a few moments. Longer term, when we look out here, days 11 through 15, we do see overall above average temperatures spreading through a large section of the United States. And we've talked about this in my long range videos. You can get those at my.nutrienagsolutions.com. We talk about the bigger players affecting the flow here. We know that we have lost kind of our stronger global wind anomaly, so we've slowed down the global winds. Also, we've lost our El Nino base state. We've actually seen the Central Pacific at times exhibit La Nina-like behavior. This is giving us much longer waves in the jet stream, and as a result, we're starting to see some troughing over Alaska. Now, I need to show you my animation of the upper level flow of the atmosphere here. We're going to have to look down over the North Pole because that's going to help us really understand this flow pattern. I want you to pay very careful attention to what's going on over in Alaska and then how it shifts this ridge right here and this trough, okay? That is key. So as I click play, let me just pause it right there. Now we notice that with time, we're starting to see a whole lot more troughing right in through here in parts of the Bering Sea, in the Gulf of Alaska. And this ridge that was parked here across the western United States and the deeper trough over the east, well, they're about to change in position. We see that with the trough digging back into Alaska, the trough digging here into British Columbia, the ridge is going to broaden back out by the time we get through the end of this week and spread back to the east. Okay? If you watch all my long-range videos, I talk about these upper-level flow patterns, especially with respect to high-latitude blocking. It tends to dominate what goes on with the flow of the jet stream over the United States and the Canadian prairies. And we just notice that that particular feature is going to be one that is very important right over here to allowing the ridge to spread back east and bring heat with it. Now, meanwhile, while that is going on, you're going to see this in a few minutes. I'm going to take this back a little bit. Much of Europe will be seeing a massive resurging ridge at time as well. This is where we get when we slow down the global winds. We start to bring in some high latitude troughing in certain places, like here between Greenland and Canada, and here in Western Canada and Alaska. Ridge broadens out, heat returns. That is key. So we have this brief reprieve before summer comes back on full blast. And because of the lateness of this planted crop in the midsection of the country, this is very important to pay attention to. Now let's get into some of the details with precipitation. Our main frontal boundary is still set in through here, so I'm watching for very heavy rain and potential for severe weather in this part of the United States. Outside of that, where our ridge is sitting here out in the surface, upper level ridge out here in the Intermountain West, you're going to see storms running around the edge of it just like this. So we get those drawings off of here, start you off at 6 a.m. on Monday, and just play out through midday Tuesday. See it? That is where we're watching for our shower and thunderstorm activity today. Much of the midsection of the country cleared out here with higher atmospheric pressure, drier weather that's coming in. And as the front presses toward the south and east, expecting some very, very heavy rainfall in the northeast and the mid-Atlantic. Severe weather there as well. Scattered showers and storms over the southeast, and storms running around the periphery of that ridge across parts of the Four Corner States and the Intermountain West. That's the name of the game as we get through the next 30 hours or so. Stretching this out, let's take a look at the next 7 days in terms of total accumulated precipitation. Now, when we look at this particular map, there's a tropical feature we're going to be discussing here that's going to kind of run up in this direction. Not a hurricane, nothing to look out for there in terms of hurricanes, but bringing in the moisture. The precipitation that you see here, a lot of this is coming today over the next little while, which means that this section of the United States, honestly, when you just look over the next week or so, is drier on the whole. We need to figure out when and where that precipitation is coming in. Taking a quick look up here in parts of the Canadian prairies, still have some precip moving through that area, keeping things wet. It was wet last week, and we're going to continue to stay wet and stormy as we move forward. Let's take a look at some of those details, okay? So let me switch you over here to the European model, and let's begin. Starting on Monday morning, dominant area of higher atmospheric pressure on the leading edge of which in through here is where we're getting our showers and storms. So our front is parked right in through there. Clicking play, let's just get you out here. This is Monday night into Tuesday morning. So you can see the main frontal boundary still pushing in this direction, fed on moisture, wrapping around this big area of higher atmospheric pressure in the central Atlantic, okay? But notice in the midsection of the country, I got you to Tuesday afternoon, Tuesday evening, Wednesday morning. That high pressure dominates, and it's going to be several days of nicer weather. Meanwhile, by the time we get into Thursday, we have our shortwave trough moving through parts of Alberta here, and we're going to be developing a low pressure system that's going to be elongate right here through Saskatchewan into parts of Manitoba, and it'll be on this that we get a lot of showers and storms in our Canadian prairies. To the south of it, though, look, higher pressure still hanging on here for the end of our week. So there's the storm spreading across the Canadian prairies. High pressure slides east, and this is a relatively calm week. Now, as that low by Friday morning begins to press over into parts of Ontario in the Hudson Bay, the front will be draped through parts of the Dakotas, but really into Minnesota, Wisconsin, this area. So that could be bringing through on Friday. At least that's the current timing of this. Friday afternoon and evening, showers and thunderstorms in through this corridor. But outside of that, a relatively quiet week. Now I'm going to go ahead and let the operational model take us into next weekend here, even though we're getting kind of far out in it. At this point, there will be a frontal boundary still hanging in through here, keeping a region of showers and thunderstorms in that area. But that may be the first chance we get for some rain in this corridor, over the next 5 to 7 days. And even beyond that, that frontal boundary hanging out there for next part of next weekend, well, that's really, really pretty much it. So this is a much, much quieter pattern as we watch the ridge that was out west transition back east with time. Okay, with that, I'm going to switch over quickly to tropics, then we'll get you to what's going on in Europe, India, and China. We'll wrap this one up. We are watching a little region right here in parts of the Bahamas for potential development. Right now, this is very low probability, not expecting this to turn into a tropical system. Remember, our front will be draped right in through here. Oops, excuse me. Our front will be draped right across this region, and that's going to really keep this thing away. But because of the dominance of high atmospheric pressure here, we're going to be funneling quite a bit of moisture, so it could be a very wet and stormy week for parts of the southeast. Looking at what's going on with our surface temperatures, though, sea surface temperatures, do notice that we are quite warm in the main development region, which is part of it is right in through here. Barry's still cooled off this section of the ocean here, but that'll be warming up very quickly. One of the other problems with this system not developing, if you can see here, it's going to be moving into a region that is very high wind shear. That'll rip it right apart. That's what's on that front there. But do notice that we've started to calm down the wind shear in the main development region, which means we have to watch very carefully for any tropical waves to emerge in that area in the near term. So I'll keep a very close eye on that for you and keep you updated. But right now, National Hurricane Center is not watching anything just yet out here in the main development region. All right, but I'm just telling you, because of the collapse of El Nino and the wind shear slacking there, it's becoming more of a conducive environment. Europe, we're dealing with another heat wave that'll stretch from parts of, maybe even parts of western Poland, but getting through parts of Germany, France, and the Iberian Peninsula this week. So extreme heat here, clipping even parts of the eastern part of the British Islands here. What's going on? Deeper trough sitting in this area, right in through there, and a big ridge that's doing something like this, bringing in this heat. It's going to break a bit on Friday, but it's going to be coming back on next week. Overall, that flow pattern, okay, keeps parts of far eastern Ukraine and the Russian wheat belt wet, while it keeps much of Central Europe very hot and very warm. But the main flow around that trough bringing in quite a bit of precipitation in through this area, so you can kind of see what's going on in Europe over the next 7 to 10 days. And when we talk about precipitation, we got to understand that right now upper levels of the atmosphere have moved over to a much more supportive regime for getting the monsoon to kick back on in India, so pushing quite a bit of moisture back into much of India over the next 10 days. You can see there. Also, China's main growing areas here getting quite wet over the next 10 days as well, so we can see quite a bit of moisture in that area showing up here on our European model 10-day precip map. But with that, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this forecast video right here with Nutrien Ag Solutions. Hope you look forward to all of our forecast content coming out this week at my.nutrienagsolutions.com. Have a great week, and we'll talk to you again soon. Thank you.